Hello, Thai global audience. So excited to be a part of this global entrepreneurship extravaganza. Trust that each of you guys that have been attending the sessions day and night for the next 36 hours have taken advantage of all the great content and great connections that Thai provides. And now we're reporting live from the East Coast, Thai Atlanta, to bring to you the next 4 hours from startup to scale. And before we dive deep into, what this is going to be about, to set a tone, we have a quick short video to play to really get this going.
In this city, we rise to create, to chase, to build our dreams. Atlanta has been building the leading corporations of tomorrow from the startups of today. We know what to do here in Atlanta. We tap into our creativity to serve up refreshing ideas that disrupt industries. We turned a spotlight on our Southern charm and elevated entertainment like only we could. We build success here. We build the next industrialists who know how to take investments and grow, and make investments in those with vision to solve tomorrow's problems today. Look around, the doors are open. From new ideas, Thai build more than just businesses. We build Atlanta.
What we do here at Thai Atlanta. Again, our vision is always to be able to support entrepreneurs through the entire life cycle. And that's what we're going to break down. But to give you a little bit more context, we have our chapter champions and board of directors, Sankit Patel and Gopal Cortana, who are going to shed some light before we get this panel started. Over to you, Sankit.
Thank you, Amin. Welcome, Thai Global Summit participants from around the world. My name is Sankit Patel, and I am currently serving on the board of Atlanta, Georgia, Thai chapter. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight some of our most successful Thai Atlanta programming that aligns with our 4 pillars: mentoring, networking, education, and funding. The first program is TYE, Thai Young Entrepreneurs High School Program. This program empowers and educates students to become the next generation of entrepreneurs. TYE High School is a hands-on entrepreneurship, ideation, business model, financial, and customer discovery program taught by entrepreneurs and mentors from the Thai Atlanta network. We've been very lucky, and our teams from each of the programs have placed in the top of this year's Thai Global competition, even attaining first place for our high school team. We also have a Thai University program, and we just launched a TYE middle school program that we're extremely excited to get started. The second program is our Access program, which is completely new. Thai Access was launched earlier this year to close the networking, mentoring, and funding gap faced by women and minority-owned businesses here in the Southeast. We actually had our first Access competition, and one of our speakers today, Dr. Angela Fisaro, who is an ER doctor, has a company named Physician 360, and she won first place out of 51 applicant companies. The third program has been wonderful. It's our Thai Atlanta Angels program. This program was launched in 2017 with the vision to create a new capital raise platform designed to invest in new, high-growth entrepreneurial startups with a primary focus in the Southeast United States. So far, we've invested over $7 million across 18 startups since August of 2017. Another investment of $3.2 million so far in 2020. We are proud to be a part of the Thai global ecosystem. With that, I would like to introduce my fellow board member, Gopal Cortana, to tee up our program for you today. Thank you and be safe.
Hey, thank you, Sanket. Good morning. I guess good afternoon, good evening to all our listeners in Europe, Africa, Asia. Uh, I'm Gopal Cortana, co-founder CTO of Cyrano Systems, based out of Atlanta, Georgia here. I've been associated with TI for almost 15 years now, been a long-time charter member, and also currently serving as a board member. And I'm also the co-chair of one of the TYE high school programs. I'm honored here today to represent Atlanta in this TGS global event. And first, I want to congratulate the TGS team for an amazing job for organizing this one-of-a-kind global event. I know this is a lot of hard work and a lot of coordination. So kudos to you guys. So without you getting to the agenda for today, what we want to do in the next 4 hours is essentially showcase Atlanta. It's a wonderful city. We would all want you to come here and experience it and make it. And we want, in the next 4 hours, we want to almost make it feel like it's your home, just like it's ours. It has an amazing entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have various institutions, Georgia Tech, Emory University, CDC, University of Georgia, Georgia State Universities, almost 24 vibrant incubators and accelerators like ATDC, Atlanta Tech Village, and TI Atlanta itself, right? It plays a very critical role in the Atlanta ecosystem. It has a wonderful investment community and an amazing ecosystem in general for startups from who are starting to raising money to exits. So the way we are going to present this to you, our city, is essentially by telling you stories, stories of, I call it journeys or experiences by entrepreneurs who are in various stages, starting from Animesh Cortana and his journey for testgram.ai, from TYE High School to Stanford to the inception of the company and its current state. Angela Fusaro, who is the CEO of Physician 360, part of TI Access program, her TI connections and her journey in Atlanta. And then Samir Kumar Patel, President and CEO of Moonlight Therapeutics. This will be followed by a panel discussion with three of our very successful entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, multiple exits, who are going to talk about and give them their experiences over the last 2 decades, over multiple exits. This will be Andy Monin, CEO of Cyrano Systems, Ashish Mistry, managing partner of BLH Ventures, and moderated by Tom Singh, who is SVP at Merrill Lynch. Here, I guess you guys will get a first-hand taste of Atlanta, what it means to start, scale, and exit in our city. Finally, hope this 4 hours gives you a good idea about Atlanta and our ecosystem over here. So without ado, let me hand it over to Amin, who's going to start the event. Thank you.
Our vision with what we want to achieve here. Let's get on with the storytelling. So as Gopal mentioned, up first is going to be Animesh Cortana, who is a TYE high school graduate who did not win the competition, but went on to also achieve entrepreneur excellence with his time spent at Stanford as a computer science major, and then to becoming founder of Testgram AI. As you guys all know, startup isn't easy. It takes a lot of trial and error, but here to present you guys some of the lessons learned and about his journey, Animesh Cortana. You're muted, sir, Animesh.
intro me. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, everyone, here today. Really excited to talk to you guys about my story and exactly what I'm doing here at TestGram, and also my journey through Stanford. Let me share my screen real quick. I got a few slides that I can share and hopefully, can you see my screen okay? Go. At Stanford University, studying computer science and machine learning. And I'm also the founder and CEO of TestGram.ai, which is a next generation testing platform for web testing. You can plug into almost any modern web application stack and give you almost instant regression testing. But we'll get into that very, very soon. So today, really what I wanted to do was to talk about something useful and walk you guys through exactly what my journeys looked like, not only through college, but also before that in high school. So basically, over the course of this talk, I'll be talking a little bit about my high school experience, working on my own projects with TYE High School, and then how that kind of rolled into my future experiences doing research at Stanford, and then how that led to today working on TestGram. And I've always, when I was putting this talk together, I was thinking about, like, what's the best way to tell this story? And what I realized was I've always been working on something. And I thought the best way that I could really tell my story was to talk about the things that I was hacking, the projects that I was working on the side. And I think through those, you can actually kind of see the evolution of what I think the next big thing is, and what I think the valuable thing is. It shows the way that I've changed the way I've thought, how the maturity kind of grew as I was exposed to things like TYE High School and my research at Stanford. So without further ado, let me get started with my high school experience. So I went into high school, as I said, as a hacker. I've always been a hacker. I remember in freshman year of high school, my friends and I wanted to play laser tag, and my parents were busy, so they wouldn't take us. So I decided to go ahead and build a laser tag gun myself, right? And this is kind of a really small, a small example of what I would call hacking here, but really kind of just identifying problems that I saw around my own life and trying to solve them. So what you guys see here is actually this little laser tag gun we made makeshift with these Nerf guns that we had lying around. We put a little Arduino controller inside of it and started playing laser tag around the house. And these kinds of things are pretty consistent throughout my life. Actually, this is a picture from my basement. Through a majority of high school, actually, we ran a robotics team actually out of my basement. My friends were there all the time creating a mess. And it was very easy, actually. Very quickly, we realized the causality between us creating a mess in our basement and my parents who would come down, and that is actually a picture of them wrapping me in bubble wrap after they realized what we'd actually done to the basement. But the moral of the story here is I've always been working on something, always been hacking around, always been doing something. And that's kind of the inception of the story. And early on, my focus was always technical. I've always been a rather technical person, interested in hacking around on computers and robotics, trying to build something. And the first kind of real exposure that I got outside of that was at TYE High School. And there actually we put together this really interesting idea, which was technologically actually very simple. We wanted to create glasses basically for the masses without necessarily needing prescriptions. So we created these adjustable glasses that basically use variable amounts of fluid to change the numbers on each lens. And kind of where it lacked in complexity, we spent a lot of time thinking about how this could kind of hit scale. And I think this was a really important kind of moment for me because that was the first time that one of my projects, or one of the things that I was thinking about, kind of scaled past a tiny little scope of problem that I was thinking about as a middle school or early high school student. It was the first time I saw something that where technology could kind of make impact at scale. And this was a super, super exciting experience for me, and kind of one of the early inflection points. And from there, actually, after that, I began to kind of take my two interests in computer science and robotics and that kind of stuff, and then I put it together with this like newfound passion for creating things at scale, trying to understand how my impact could be operationalized at scale and understand and try to deliver that to people. And one of the first projects that I kind of threw myself into right after that was a project that I did with a Johns Hopkins professor, actually, in trying to understand exactly what the different usage trends of drugs across college campuses. And one of the first papers that I actually put out was this one, studying anonymous health issues and substance use on college campuses with Yik Yak, right? And I don't know if you guys remember, Yik Yak it's no longer active right now, but it's basically a anonymized social media platform for at the time a lot of kids to basically anonymously post that what they're doing, or I mean, it ended up becoming a place where people would end up talking a lot about drugs and alcohol and substance use. And we basically wanted to use that as a way to very pinpointedly address some sort of epidemiological issues in and across college campuses. And this was kind of a culmination of my understanding of technology and what could really be done in order to solve a problem like this. And then after that, then kind of what was useful, things that I'd learned in the past using my technical experience, and also my understanding of scale and then how to make things useful at scale with my TYE high school experience. And really, this was one of the coolest projects that I've worked on to date, and it was really simple. So basically what we did was, this was actually a very, very large hack in and of itself. We basically found a backdoor into the Yik Yak servers, and every time somebody would post, hey, this is something to do with drugs or alcohol or tobacco use or anything like that, we would basically monitor all the posts going through Yik Yak and then deliver to college campuses at an extremely, extremely granular level exactly where and what drugs were being used, what they needed to control for, and things like that. So this was my first kind of larger scale hack. It got me kind of working at the intersection of machine learning, natural language processing, reinforcement learning, and a whole bunch of new technologies that I really got to play with. But I think this was important for a very, very different reason. And that reason was, for the first time, we made data useful, or in other words, operational. So I think in a lot of cases, actually, we think about AI as this kind of new and shiny toy, and this is going to be a theme actually across a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. We think of AI as this like new and shiny toy that can hit almost any nail. Right? It's a hammer that can hit almost any nail, but the emergent and effective use cases that AI a lot of times ends up happening or ends up creating aren't necessarily always consumer facing, right? They aren't necessarily always self-driving cars, or they aren't necessarily always drones that are delivering boxes in front of your door, but rather actually make operational decisions and enable everyday processes in a very, very meaningful way. And this was the first time that we did that. And this is just me reiterating that, right? We took data and used machine learning to connect it to the stuff that people really care about. And the really exciting thing for me was this was like crack, right? This was the coolest thing anybody could ever do. It was taking just large scales of data. In this Yik Yak case, it meant every single post that any user across all of Yik Yak was making, and then condensing it down into some sort of important distillate that people really care about. And with that newfound appreciation, I took that to Stanford. So this is kind of early 2017, so just a few years ago. I walked into Stanford with a general understanding for, all right, I'm interested in machine learning, I'm interested in natural language processing, I'm interested in data analytics, but I didn't really know what to do. And just right about at that time, Stanford basically come out with a new initiative called the Stanford Dawn Initiative, which is put together by two of my now professors, Dr. Peter Bayless and Dr. Matej Zaharia. Matej Zaharia right now is the co-founder of Databricks, and the founder of Apache Spark, Peter Bayless, the founder of Sisu. Really kind of what their impetus was to create this DOM project was thinking about how to make machine learning usable. And this kind of fit very, very nicely hand in glove with my newfound appreciation for making machine learning and clean interfaces to data. So really more than anything, I wanted it. So what I decided to do here was basically go out and try to find a new project to work on to basically integrate into this DOM project. So I went and talked to a whole bunch of different companies kind of across Silicon Valley area, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Tesla, to understand, like what are the problems that people are facing around machine learning and or around AI infrastructure generally. And the project that I came up with was actually around convolutional neural networks, initially at least. We identified the problem of, let's say for Tesla, inside of their cars, they have these really, really deep neural networks that basically process every single image, every single frame of every image or of every video to identify cars, to make sure that, all right, this car has all these other cars around it, and make sure that you're kind of reacting in the right ways. Similarly, the exact same technologies used at Facebook to classify images, to make sure that, all right, if you're posting a picture of a cat, make sure that Facebook actually knows that there's a cat in this image and then can appropriately tag it, and then so on and so forth. And at Google for their Google image search, so on and so forth. And what we were trying to do here is this was a really kind of new and exciting technology at the time with deep convolutional networks. And what we wanted to do, and the project that I initially proposed here was to try to create this algorithm or this ability to take really, really deep neural networks and compress them down, make them much smaller with the same kind of functional ability. So make deep networks shallower to lower the computational footprint and save all these companies a little bit of money. And the way we wanted to do that was by taking really deep networks and using them basically as teachers to train smaller networks that would then basically be able to scale. And just after a few years of work, actually, we were able to publish for the first time a paper called LIT. As you guys can tell, it's actually a trend of mine. I'm really bad at the whole acronym thing. So the L for LIT actually comes from blockwise, second L right there. Really, I mean, this was a super exciting project because what we were able to do was basically plug into the way that Facebook and Google and Tesla and a whole bunch of, actually really any company that's using computer vision in their pipeline and reduce their computational footprint for actually running that computational pipeline by a factor of 10, by a factor of 20. And kind of in the process, personally, I was able to really drink from the fire hose. At my time working on LIT, I was really able to work with teams at Google and Facebook and Tesla and Netflix to really understand how they do things and what makes these companies kind of fundamentally different from all of the other companies that we start and we get to work with over the course of our lives. And it kind of came down to one fundamental observation for me. At all of these companies, AI was a tool that was used to deliver operational value through data. And this goes back to this point that I made earlier today, where AI doesn't necessarily have to be a tool that creates the shiny new products that consumers face. Really what was keeping Facebook and Tesla and all of these companies that I mentioned, what was keeping them ahead was their ability to operationalize data in every single aspect of the way that they did things, down to how they released their software, down to how they made their decisions about who to hire, everything. And what kind of the most exciting things that I saw that were happening kind of across the board was in the way that people actually thought about releasing and testing. So at Facebook, actually, for example, Facebook doesn't release software the way that we would think so. For example, if Facebook has a pool of users right now using facebook.com version 1.0, and they want to release version 1.1, Facebook won't just release it the way we do, but instead they'll slowly roll it out. So they'll take a few users, right? Maybe there's like one user, put it into this new release, and make sure that that one user isn't having any sort of issues in that domain. And if that's soon, they'll bring a few more. And make sure that they're dealing with the issues that these real users are facing as they're rolling out this release. And then after that, as they end up dealing with all the issues and they become more and more confident, they'll slowly end up moving the rest of their users along as well. And similarly at Netflix, they created this tool called Chaos Monkey. And this is actually a really dangerous thing because it basically randomly terminates virtual machines and servers live in production to make sure that the engineers are able to build systems that are resilient. And these sorts of AI-enabled tools, and by the way, both Chaos Monkey and this way that Facebook releases are actually really, really interesting manifestations of AI at scale. And all of what these things were doing, all of what these tools were achieving in the organizations that they were working in was building a culture of resiliency. And the culture of resiliency ended up enabling these companies to move faster than any other company in the history of tech companies has ever been able to move. So what I realized here was the future of AI isn't in building these shiny products, but rather it's in creating interfaces to our own data. The future of AI is in the interfaces they create to our own data. And more times than not, it comes down to making the right data useful at the right time. Prioritizing human attention has been kind of one thesis of both the Stanford Dawn Project and my work generally. And what we see over and over and over again is that modern software, modern applications generate tremendous amounts of data. And making sure that we can basically pull the needle out of the haystack and point to the right thing at the right time is the difference between delivering really, really kind of high precision, high accuracy, and high quality experiences. Being able to pick the right thing out at the right time is super, super important to be able to deliver those types of experiences. So that takes me to today and what we're working on today. So after coming to this realization, we kind of took a step back and said, how do we bring these types of technologies to you? How do we bring the idea of chaos engineering, or how do we bring the idea of really making sure that this quality of this culture of resilience is persistent across your entire organization? How do we bring this to you? And when we started observing the ways that different organizations kind of really instill this within their teams, we realized that for companies like mine or companies like yours, the guardians of quality are your testers. They're the people who are actually making sure that the stuff that our developers and our product team and all of those people are creating is actually high quality enough for the end users, for the people who are actually going to end up using that application. And what we needed to do was basically kind of fundamentally rethink the way that we were operationalizing data, or how were we motivating decisions that these testers were making with data. So at TestGram, the impetus was this belief that the approach to testing today diverges from the most fundamental goal of testing, which is to test the product as the user would use it. Or in other words, kind of tying it back to the rest of my talk here today, testing today lacks the operational intelligence necessary to make the decisions that they really need to on a day-to-day. And that's where we started my company today, which is called TestGram. We realized that testing just needed a whole lot more love. So the first question we asked was, how do we make the right data accessible to our product team, and product team kind of including testers, at the right time? And the most kind of basic answer to this question was how about we deliver a product very similar to what Facebook does? How do we do something that allows people to basically roll out a release to a whole bunch of users? So in effect, basically test against real users without actually, having a huge detrimental effect on product quality. But very quickly realized, what? Facebook can do that because they're Facebook. Facebook has 6 billion users, and for them it's very easy to test on a few thousand because a few thousand is 0.0000001% of their user base. But a company like Testgram doesn't have the freedom or the ability to do something like that, because for us, even one user having bad experience is a really big deal. So instead, we needed a different way, one that could scale past the constraint kind of given to us by Facebook, and one that could work with just all of the other companies in the world. And the kind of crazy idea, the far out there idea that we had at the time and that we started working on in my lab at the time was how about we replicate real users in pre-production environments? So how about we learn the way that real people are using the application and try to replicate those ways inside of your new releases so that you know what's breaking before your users find it. And that's actually exactly what we did. So we took kind of Facebook's model and said, all right, here's one release, here's what's out there right now, what my real users are using. And then after that, here's a new release, one that users haven't been using yet, but has new functionality, and I need to make sure it's working. And basically we train little robots, little reinforcement learning agents to replicate click by click exactly kind of the intent and the behaviors that our real users were executing. And we took that kind of one step further and built a platform around it to be able to give users to give our customers and our testers some sort of a kind of surgically precise view into the risk that they're generating release over release, and have a really clear idea about what's breaking before your manual testers or even your automation testers can really get to it. So that's where Testgram started. And today, kind of what we built is a fundamentally different approach to a problem that we kind of all have to solve, something that we all have to do. And the way we do it is by testing what your users are really doing by training reinforcement learning agents to replicate this real user behavior in a completely different environment. And the coolest thing about it is that we are able to do it with 0 lines of code, 0 instrumentation, 0 test maintenance, and can yield about 100x faster defect discovery time, entirely because of our kind of optimized and machine learning based approach. So we're kind of hyper focused on slashing that last mile delivery cost, making sure that you can deliver software as fast as possible. So that's it about Testgram. We're just a company focused on democratizing the next generation of testing tools, and we'll help you ship regression-free on-time features by supercharging your testing team. You can check us out at testgram.ai. If you have any other questions about my story or exactly kind of how we got to where we are today, you can shoot me an email at cortana@testgram.ai. So thank you so much. Any questions?
Hey, Animesh.
Hey.
All right, I just wanted to check you could hear me. Well, appreciate you doing the breakdown and really exciting with what you're doing here at Testgram. So we do have a few questions and would love for you to elaborate on a few. So tell us about kind of I would say the ideation of what you had going on, right? I think it's very important for the viewers to know is, how do you really get to that ideation finalization, right? I think you're also on this trajectory and this journey. So tell us a little bit about your insights on what it took what was it you individually, who was your soundboard, and really tell us about kind of some of the learnings from TYE High Score, the TYE program that you took to really, get through the ideation.
Yeah, so ideation is like it's a continuous process. I kind of wanted to actually convey that through the hacking theme through the entire talk here, right? Testgram is kind of like this natural result of all the projects that I've done previous. And even Testgram today is evolving as well. I guess at the Testgram scale, at least, right, over the last year and a half while I've been working on Testgram, there have been at least like maybe 5 or 6 different iterations of what we've been working on. When we initially came up with the idea, it was how do we take it, how do we build what kind of Facebook did for the rest of the world? And that was kind of like the initial impetus. And actually, I kind of as a technical hacky kind of person, my first instinct was let's build this out and see if it works for people. And this was actually last summer. And last summer I basically spent in Atlanta trying to build out a customer base for that version of the product, and kind of using the TIE network, using just a network that we built out in Atlanta. I was able to kind of very quickly iterate on that idea and realize, like we can't do what Facebook did for everyone else because everyone else is in Facebook. And that was that first iteration of Testgram. And there were a few more, but I think the most important aspect of putting yourself in a situation where you can do that is making sure that you're constantly talking to people. And I think one of the most useful things that I had in order to like achieve that was the TIE network.
Beautiful. And we just had one question come through, so I'm going to try to phrase it. Is that obviously you being someone that knows tech, really knows the space, and then founding a company is great. Now, if you weren't if you didn't have a tech background, how, what would you see a way where you either had to recruit a co-founder, or the question is that came through was, can a non-tech founder do a tech startup? So would you shed light on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think this goes back to like one of the previous slides that I had here, where the biggest realization that I had was that the tools that AI creates and the really useful things that AI creates aren't necessarily the like shiny objects that we see, like once every 100 times in marketplace, but rather they're really interesting interfaces to data. I don't think you have to be a technical person to answer a technical problem really well. I think you just have to know the problem really well. So it's a little bit of a fuzzy answer, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is you have to kind of go after a problem that you know really well. And in solving it, a lot of times the kind of key realization or the nugget that you bring to the industry, a lot of times isn't technical. It's something else. It's how do you kind of connect data to the people, right? Or how do you work with the teams in the right way, or things like that. And that's, I think, the other 98% of building the right startup. And that last 2% is technical. So yes, absolutely, you can build a technical company without being technical, because you just need to focus in on solving a problem in the right way.
Disclaimer, everyone that's listening, this is coming from a person that knows tech. I'm sure
honestly, I would actually say that it sometimes actually is a hindrance to know tech. If you're too technical, I just took me a long time to kind of get myself out of that mindset of thinking, how do I build this immediately every single time? Because a lot of times, right, it kind of distracts away from thinking about what the right way to solve it in the first place is.
Fair point. One more question. So timeline for startups is very crucial, right? There's there's a lot of things that you have to be accountable for, and then there needs to be alignment within the team. So, what is your take on kind of really getting that team to understand how to really focus in on what the vision is? Everyone plays their role, and I'm sure on your team plays it extremely well. But how do you really get that, I would say, the uniformity in team to be able to bring everyone together, understand that here's a specific goal and this is what we want to achieve, because timeline is very crucial during this stage.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, because especially when you're building a company like ours, where it's a new idea in the marketplace, and if executed correctly, it's going to kind of fundamentally change the way the industry works. At that point in time, like for us, it's a land grab, right? Like we built a product, and we need to get out as fast as humanly possible. That's a great question about like how to keep everybody on the same page. I think the answer is actually opposite from what you would think. I think my answer to that is to let everyone dream. I think it's really important that, especially as a technical founder and also as a young founder, I think it's really important that everyone else in the team is better at their job than you are at doing their job. And because of that, I think it's really important that they kind of, from their own vantage point and their own experiences, are able to think about what you're building and contribute. That said, though, I mean, every company needs to kind of have a unifying vision, and things that like I've consistently done that I think have helped in unifying that vision has been talking to the team as much as I possibly can about why what every single decision we make, why what they're doing, and how what they're doing basically contributes to that vision. I think repetition is super important there. Making sure that you're like just constantly in front of everyone, talking about what you're like as a group trying to achieve.
So true to Thai tradition, we want to leave everyone with a little bit of advice, based on kind of what you've seen and what you've accomplished. Let's say with everything that you told us today, kind of from the full startup journey, about some of the inflection points, and then really getting kind of keeping ideation as a growth journey and keeping that as something that you are open to. What advice would you give to a startup or to a founder or a first-time entrepreneur on next steps, as they go through the checklist of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Give me a minute to think about that. That's a good question. I would say, yeah, the most helpful thing I've ever had, and this is inside of like starting Testgram, outside of that too, through my research, through the random projects that I was working on, the most important thing that I've always been fortunate enough to have is like a really, really good set of mentors, having people who are really, really good at what they do and that I really respect, to give me advice on how to think about what I'm doing. And I have mentors from kind of all different, really all different shapes and sizes. Like I have mentors when it comes to technical things, who Peter and Matei, I mentioned them earlier on. I have mentors at like the Stanford GSB, who've helped me a lot in like setting up Testgram in the first place. I have mentors, Mr. Manin, I think he's going to be speaking later today, who's helped a lot about just thinking about like what the right business is and sales, and they're just kind of all across the board, and they've been instrumental in just me framing my worldview in the right way. So definitely, I mean, like Ty's a fantastic resource to put that mentor network together. But outside of that, I mean, if you're at school professors, the people you talk to make a huge impact.
Ramesh, thank you so much for your time, and everyone else in the audience. You see his information right there. Testgram.ai is the website, and if you want to get connected with Ms. Cortana at testgram.ai. If anyone has any other intimate questions or would like to know about what Animesh is doing, or we're also just would love to schedule time with him to hear from him about what he's doing specifically, and seeing if there's any other resource that he could be helpful with, please do reach out. But Animesh, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Meet.